Somewhere in the Nevada desert, 83 miles northwest of Las Vegas, there's a stretch of dry lake bed the U.S. government spent almost 60 years refusing to officially admit even existed. Not what happens there, that it exists at all. Here's what almost nobody telling this story gets right. The government wasn't hiding aliens. It was hiding airplanes. And in at least one documented case, the government didn't just let people believe in aliens by accident. Internal Pentagon investigators later found it deliberately fed people that belief on purpose to protect something far more mundane and far more real. This is the actual origin of Area 51's secrecy, how it started, how the world's most famous conspiracy attached itself to it, and what the people who study this seriously still get wrong. Part 1. The Real Reason It Exists, 1955. The story starts in April 1955, not with anything extraterrestrial, but with a plane. The CIA, working under a program called Project Aquaton, needed somewhere remote to test a brand new high-altitude spy plane being built in secret by Lockheed's Skunk Works division in Burbank, California, the U-2. CIA Project Director Richard Bissell and an Air Force colonel named Osmond Ritland flew over the Nevada desert in a small Beechcraft, piloted by Lockheed's own chief test pilot, scouting locations. They spotted an old, disused airstrip beside a dry salt flat called Groom Lake, left over from World War II. Lockheed's legendary aircraft designer Kelly Johnson used a compass to lay out the direction for a new runway right there on the lake bed. It was perfect, flat, isolated, ringed by mountains, and, critically, right next to the Atomic Energy Commission's existing Nevada test site, where the government was already detonating nuclear weapons and already had a built-in excuse to keep outsiders away. That adjacency is the whole secret, in one sentence. The CIA didn't need to build a new secret zone from scratch. It just needed to attach a 9-mile patch of desert onto a nuclear testing zone the public already accepted as off-limits. On the Atomic Energy Commission's own internal land grid maps, that patch was labeled simply Area 51. In May 1955, the AEC actually announced the land acquisition publicly, in a press release describing a new satellite Nevada test site installation. This is the detail almost every retelling skips entirely. Area 51's existence was never some hidden, undisclosed secret from day one. What was secret, deliberately, specifically, and for real Cold War reasons, was what was happening inside it. By July 1955, personnel from the CIA, the Air Force, and Lockheed were arriving on site. Kelly Johnson, ever the marketer, nicknamed the place Paradise Ranch to convince workers that a remote desert base in the middle of nowhere was somewhere worth living. It got shortened, almost immediately and almost sarcastically, to the ranch. The U-2's first test flight happened there on August 4, 1955. To keep the plane's real purpose hidden even from the pilots' own families and the aviation world, the CIA gave the U-2 a cover story. It was supposedly a NASA weather research aircraft, flown by the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. They painted NACA markings on the fuselage, and even had pilots log some genuine weather data during training flights to make the lie hold up under light scrutiny. It was, by the CIA's own later admission, a fairly thin cover, but it worked long enough. Part 2. From Spy Planes-2 Stealth Fighters. The U-2 wasn't the last secret the desert would keep. After U-2 was shot down over the Soviet Union by an anti-aircraft missile in 1960, the CIA needed something faster and harder to detect, leading to the A-12OXCART, a titanium-skinned aircraft that could cross the entire continental United States in about 70 minutes at over 2,000 miles an hour, flying so high and so fast that Soviet radar and missiles struggled to touch it. Area 51 expanded significantly to support it through the early 1960s, with tighter security and a much larger footprint. The base's Cold War utility didn't stop with American aircraft. Declassified documents released by the National Security Archive in 2013 confirmed Area 51 secretly hosted captured Soviet MiG fighter jets, obtained covertly during the Cold War so American pilots and engineers could study and fly against them without the Soviets knowing their own aircraft had been compromised. In the following decades, the base became the testing ground for the D-21 tagboard drone, and eventually, the F-117 Nighthawk, the world's first operational stealth aircraft, whose sharply angled, radar-evading design was so unlike anything else flying at the time that anyone who glimpsed it at a distance, at night, might reasonably have assumed they were looking at something not built by human hands at all. That's not incidental to the next part of this story. It's the entire mechanism behind it. Part 3, where the myth actually starts. Through the 1950s and 60s, commercial pilots and civilians across the American West began reporting strange lights and impossibly fast, silent aircraft in the sky, sightings that, decades later, the CIA's own declassified history openly credits to the U-2 and A-12 test flights themselves. Both aircraft flew at altitudes and speeds nothing else in civilian airspace could match. A U-2 catching the setting sun at 60,000 feet, invisible to the naked eye as an aircraft but glowing strangely against the darkening sky, was exactly the kind of thing that got reported to the Air Force as a UFO. Because, to an ordinary observer with no knowledge that a secret spy plane program even existed, it was unidentified and it was flying. Here's the part that turns this from a simple case of mistaken identity into something much stranger. The government did not merely fail to correct these UFO reports. According to a 2024-2025 review by the Pentagon's own All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, the office created specifically to investigate UFO and UAP claims. U.S. military and intelligence officials at points deliberately encouraged UFO mythology as active cover for classified programs. AARO's first director, Sean Kirkpatrick, told the Wall Street Journal that officials had, in some documented cases, allowed and even engineered UFO rumors specifically to distract attention from real national security vulnerabilities and real classified aircraft. In one specific incident AARO uncovered, a retired Air Force colonel admitted that in the 1980s he personally handed a local bar owner near the base doctored photographs of flying saucers, deliberate disinformation, designed to reinforce alien rumors so people would stop asking real questions about the stealth aircraft actually being tested nearby. In other words, for a meaningful stretch of Area 51's history, the alien mythology wasn't just something the government tolerated. In at least some documented instances, it was something the government helped manufacture. Part 4, Bob Lazar and the name that stuck. The myth had fertile ground to grow in, and on May 15, 1989, it found its most famous messenger. A man using the pseudonym Dennis appeared, his face obscured, on Las Vegas news station KLAS, telling reporter George Knapp an extraordinary story. He claimed to be a physicist who had worked at a secret facility called S4 near Area 51, reverse engineering captured alien spacecraft for the U.S. government. Up to 9 of them, he said, at least one shaped like a classic flying saucer. He later came forward under his real name, Bob Lazar. Lazar's story had specific, technical-sounding detail that made it stick in a way vaguer UFO claims never had, including a supposed power source built from a then-undiscovered element he called Element 115. Real Element 115, moscovium, was later synthesized by scientists, but it exists for only fractions of a second and bears no resemblance to the stable power source Lazar described. Investigators who looked into Lazar's claimed academic credentials at MIT and Caltech found no record he had ever attended either institution, and no independent physical evidence for his story has ever surfaced in the 30-plus years since. None of that stopped the story from spreading, or from permanently attaching the word alien to the name Area 51 in the public imagination. When the CIA finally, formally acknowledged Area 51's existence in 2013, Lazar himself dismissed it, telling reporters everyone had already known the base existed for 25 years, and that the real secrets in his account were happening at a different site entirely. The declassified CIA history that same year made no mention of aliens, spacecraft, or anything extraterrestrial. It described at length spy planes. Part 5. The government's non-denial strategy. Through the 1990s, as lawsuits from former Area 51 workers alleging illegal hazardous waste exposure threatened to force disclosures in open court, the government chose an unusual strategy. Rather than confirm or deny specifics, President Bill Clinton issued a formal presidential determination in 1995 exempting the United States Air Force's operating location near Groom Lake, Nevada, from environmental disclosure laws that would otherwise have applied. It was renewed annually for the rest of Clinton's presidency and continued under George W. Bush. It was, functionally, an official acknowledgement that something significant was happening at a place the government still wouldn't name in public. This strategy, official silence combined with unofficial, worst-kept secret status, persisted for another 2 decades. Everyone who lived near the base, everyone who watched unusual aircraft lights over the Nevada desert at night, and eventually most of the country, knew Area 51 existed and knew it wasn't full of secretarial staff. The government simply declined to say the words. Part 6. The Admission 2013 and the Viral Raid 2019. That changed, formally, in August 2013. After a Freedom of Information Act request first filed back in 2005, the CIA finally declassified a 1992 internal history of the U-2 program. And for the first time in an official government document, it used the words Area 51 by name, confirming the base's real role developing and testing the U-2 and the A-12 OXCART. It was, by that point, one of the most anticlimactic disclosures in the history of American secrecy. A truth that had been an open secret for a quarter century, finally spoken aloud. 6 years later, the mythology proved it had a life completely independent of the facts. In June 2019, a college student named Maddie Roberts posted a joke Facebook event. "Storm Area 51, they can't stop all of us," proposing a mass raid on the base timed for September 20th, using a meme about moving so fast that guards couldn't shoot the raiders. It was pure internet absurdism, and it went viral beyond anything Roberts imagined, racking up millions of RSVPs within weeks. The U.S. Air Force issued public warnings that the base was a lawfully protected military installation and that trespassing would be met with force. Nevada state and federal law enforcement quietly prepared for the possibility of a genuine mass incursion. In the end, only a few hundred people actually showed up outside the tiny town of Rachel, Nevada, on the appointed night, alongside a much larger festival-style celebration called Alien Stock that drew over 10,000 people to nearby Las Vegas. 7 arrests, 2 minor injuries from a rollover crash, and 0 aliens later, it was over. What began as a meme had briefly become one of the largest coordinated public gatherings ever organized around a piece of Cold War aviation history that most of the participants likely knew nothing about. Part 7, where it stands now. Area 51 remains an active, classified U.S. Air Force installation today, administered as a remote detachment of Edwards Air Force Base, and officially referred to by the government as the Nevada Test and Training Range or Groom Lake. Its current programs remain classified. What's tested there now is, by design, unknown to the public in the same way the U-2 once was. And the most recent chapter of this story arrived not from a UFO researcher, but from the Pentagon's own internal investigators. Throughout 2024 and 2025, AARO's review, reported extensively by the Wall Street Journal and multiple outlets, documented a pattern going back decades of the U.S. military using UFO disinformation as an active tool of classified program protection, including fabricated internal briefings and at least one fictional alien investigation program, reportedly used to haze new personnel. The Pentagon has since formally banned the practice. Sean Kirkpatrick, summarizing the findings, put it plainly: secrecy and misinformation, even when well-intentioned, can spiral into myth. Part 8. What historians actually get wrong. Myth 1. Area 51 was a completely hidden, undisclosed secret from the start. It wasn't. The Atomic Energy Commission publicly announced the land acquisition in 1955. What the government hid for decades wasn't the base's existence. It was specifically what was happening inside it. Conflating classified activity with totally unacknowledged location flattens a much more interesting story about exactly what kind of secrecy the government was actually running. Myth 2. The alien mythology is just public imagination running wild, with no government involvement. This is the myth this video exists to correct. For years, the working assumption, even among serious researchers, was that Area 51's UFO reputation was purely organic. Confused civilians misreading classified aircraft, amplified by tabloids and unreliable witnesses like Bob Lazar. The Pentagon's own 2024-2025 AARO review complicates that considerably. In multiple documented instances, U.S. military personnel didn't just let the alien rumors persist. They manufactured and spread them on purpose, including fabricated photographs handed directly to civilians, specifically to protect real, mundane, classified aircraft programs. The myth wasn't just tolerated. In places, it was engineered. Myth 3. Bob Lazar exposed a genuine secret alien program. 3.5 decades on, there remains no independent physical evidence supporting Lazar's account, no verifiable record of the academic credentials he claimed, and no confirmation of Element 115 behaving anything like he described. His story's cultural impact is undeniable. It's the single biggest reason Area 51 and extraterrestrials are linked in the popular imagination at all. But cultural impact and factual accuracy are not the same thing, and serious researchers on both sides of the UFO debate generally treat his specific claims as unverified at best. Myth 4. The 2013 declassification and the government's 2013 admission settled the story for good. It settled one narrow question, that Area 51 exists and was built for spy plane testing, while leaving the underlying condition that created all this speculation completely intact. The base is still active. Its current work is still classified. The 2024-2025 AARO revelations prove the pattern of secrecy-driven mythology didn't end in the 1960s or even the 1990s. It's something the Pentagon was still actively managing, and in some cases still actively contributing to, within the last couple of years. As long as a genuinely classified military site exists in the same desert that produced this story the first time, the conditions that created the myth haven't gone anywhere. Only the specific aircraft have changed.